Report story. It's time, Kurogiri said, standing on the mountain surrounded by Dabi, twice and Gaslighter. You do realize you'll be taking the full brunt of the blame, right? Kurogiri said to Lighter. Lighter snapped his fingers, causing sparks to fly. Yeah, and it's fine. I just want to make them pay, he said calmly, however a fire was in his eyes. Dabi grinned. You know, I understand where you're coming from, crazy bastard, he said. All right then, twice. You know what to do, Kurogiri said with a nod. Yes, I do. No, what am I supposed to be doing? Gaslighter watched as Twice prepared. It was time. His revenge would be set into motion tonight. UQ Agency, 2 A.M. This is boring, one of the late night heroes stated. Right, nothing ever happens this late. Why is the agency even open? Another said. They were stationed on the second floor waiting for a phone call that was destined to never arrive. I got took night shift because it was easy, but now there's no way to grow or get recognized. No one knows what we do. First night hero said. I mean, the second started. What do we do here at night? You keep watch and keep the place safe. We're the first line of security if a villain wants to pop up. Nighttime as an open opportunity, Yukio said, who was passing the room and overheard the two. The two looked at the owner of the agency. Yukio-san, what are you still doing here this late? They asked. Yukio shook her head. Overtime. If I don't do it, a certain floaty girl will. She laughed, the two heroes not understanding the reference. Just stay on guard. You never know what might happen, Yukio said, walking away. She turned to the papers in her hand as she traveled down the halls and up the stairs to her office. Uravati had reason to worry. Her suspicions were spot on. This amateur villain made a big-time entry and left an obvious trail that disappeared. How can a man who left such a big trace vanish without a trace? A third party was involved. The obvious choice would be the League of Villains, but usually they would have made a grandiose statement as well with that empty-headed leader of theirs. Something was wrong, but what? She sat at her desk and sighed. The Dragon Hero, like the rest of the agencies, had nothing to go off of. Why waste their time with the amateur villain? Because this guy is dangerous. Blowing up buildings with people inside and using cars and people as distractions. Who knows what his next distraction is? Yukio looked out her window and sighed. What was his next goal? He went after Izuku Midoriya, but stopped at UA. Where else would he target? Suddenly Yukio squinted. The window was leaking. She stared from where she was, not daring to get close before jumping up, of course. How could she not put it together? The agencies were the next target. Yukio didn't have time to transform. The explosion happened in an instant. However, the flames that came from the explosion were blue. Yukio stood, her arm bleeding from shielding herself from the blast when another huge explosion came from below, blowing the floor she was standing on to collapse. She fell through the floor and slammed to the ground, rocks falling on top of her. Yukio was covered in debris. She couldn't move. Suddenly, two figures walked up towards her. Two burned heroes charged at the two. Lighting gas and a blast of blue flames were aimed at one each, blasting the two away. Promoted stories. You'll also like. Captured by Love. The NHA Villain Redemption a 135K 2.9K Izuku. Midoriya has never felt more confused. Being a villain has taught him to never get attached to anyone. because they'll either end up betraying you, or you'll be. There's something up with Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya had watched his mentor fight for his life and end up using the last of his power. Now being the sole wielder of One for All, Izuku knows he needs to work. The paths he chooses. Book 1. A Fate of Few. S. A normal day for Izuku as he completes his normal routine and goes to school. Along the way he runs into Yui Kodai, a quiet and mysterious girl of Class 1B, they. The quirkless lion unseen power. S1N. Kurayami has always lived in the shadows, pretending to be quirkless in a world that reveres power. Her secret isn't weakness, it's Mindweb, a terrifying ability. I Hate and Love You. 258K 4.6 Con. IzuOcha fanfiction where Deku and Uraraka had a fight in kindergarten which led to something worse. But maybe they can be friends or perhaps more. Non-quirk rated. Different 82.9K 1.5K Deku is the number one hero. He has fame and money, but he doesn't care much for either. He wants something more but doesn't know what. That is until he meets a very interesting cruelty X 1.2M 40.2K. A very hostile girl whom despised everyone and everyone despised her. Izuku Midoriya, a very sweet boy who was popular with his classmates, oddly developed. You were one of the ones I wanted the most. The red bandana wearing man said, squatting to her level. She was burned, still struggling to get out of the debris. Dabi of the League of Villains. Teaming up with an amateur. What's the league come to, huh? Yukio asked. Information was everything, especially now. The league is just a means to an end, Dragon Girl. You think this is the only agency we hit? Dabi asked, walking towards Yukio. The flames around the building were getting stronger, and orange light was filling the room, smoke everywhere. Yukio's eyes were watering from the pain of the rocks on top of her and the smoke. Dabi leaned in close to her face. You're not the only agency we've hit. Yukio transformed her arm into the dragon arm and swiped at Dabi, however the figure turned to mush. A clone. Lighter laughed and walked towards her. I guess. You're a clone too, huh? Yukio asked, losing consciousness. Lighter laughed. Nope. You and I. We have personal business. You, one of the hero agents that lead the charge on overhaul. You were right below Midoriya and that one boy, Lemillion. Lighter turned and started walking away. At the doorway he turned back, a crazed look in his eye. He lifted his hand and gas started rising from multiple flasks on his hip. You'd better dodge, you oversized lizard, or this'll burn. A stream of gas shot towards Yukio's face. Lighter snapped, the stream exploding in midair until it exploded in her face. Yukio went limp. One down. Multiple other agencies to go. I wonder how Dabi is doing at the Endeavor agency. Izuku and Ochako woke with a start, both shooting out of their bed realizing the type of alarm that was going off on their phones. They quickly turned off the noise as to not wake Eri and read the notifications. What is this? Izuku asked quietly. He turned towards a fearful-looking Ochako that looked back at him. Izuku, what do we do? Ochako asked, when suddenly another notification arrived on the phones. Both leap out of bed, not needing to get dressed since they had fallen asleep in their clothes while Izuku had comforted Ochako the night previously, and ran out the door. They ran to the corridor, already a couple of students in there, surrounding Aizawa. The two followed the rest and circled around Aizawa. Everyone was yelling and asking questions at the same time. Sensei, what's going on? Are all the agencies really being attacked? Who did it? Was it a big villain? I'll murder them. Take me to him now. Quiet down. Aizawa shouted, shutting all the students up. Listen, I know you have a lot of questions, but right now, as much as I hate to do this to first years, you lot are needed on the front lines. There are people that need saving. Thankfully, Bakugo and Todoroki have just recently gotten their licenses, so this makes this a bit easier. Quote. Most of the hero agencies in the city are under siege. The users seem to have fire and explosion type quirks. We have reason to believe that the villain who attacked Midoriya is one of them. Aizawa explained. But sir, how can so many villains attack at the same time? Iida asked. Isn't this a pro-hero issue? Should we really be out there? Many of the pros that were there are injured. This was planned well, unfortunately. Many pros take the night hours to do overtime while not expecting an attack, especially on this scale. Again, I'd rather not send you out, but there's a much larger mission that we plan to have you on anyway regarding the Liberation Front, so this is just practice if anything. The Liberation Front, aren't they? Izuku started to ask, however Aizawa raised a hand. Later. For now everyone get your hero outfits on, everyone except you. A finger pointed directly at Midoriya. But sir, you still don't have your quirk. And someone needs to be here to watch Eri. Some pros will still be stationed here, but Ua doesn't seem to be the current target, though with you being one of Gaslighter's main targets, you need to stay where it's safe. Here. Izuku gritted his teeth and looked down at the floor. Aizawa was right, and he couldn't just leave Eri. He felt a warm, soft hand cover his fist. He looked up to see Ochako's brown eyes looking deep into his. Protect her for me while I'm gone, all right? Ochako asked, as the other students started running to grab their gear from the school. Izuku smiled as best he could. I will, promise. They kissed before Ochako turned to follow the others. She hoped she had hid her fear and guilt from Izuku well. This was her fault. She didn't catch him fast enough. She shook her head. Now wasn't the time to be feeling guilty. People needed saving. Izuku watched as the others ran off, leaving him and Aizawa in the common room. Sir, aren't you going? Izuku asked. Aizawa looked down at him, as if contemplating something before giving a deep sigh. I am, but I have a job for you I didn't want the others to hear. There's more of a reason I'm keeping you here. Izuku gave Aizawa a confused look. He wasn't just here to watch after Eri. I know you've been trying to teach Eri how to control her quirk. As much as I hate that you did it unsupervised, you've made more progress than any of us. You relax her. She feels everything will be okay if you are there. Aizawa explained. They say that the villain's targets is the agencies, but I feel Ua is the next target sooner than later. We can't afford to save more than two pros here though, and other people, heroes included, need saving from the attack. So, I need you to get your quirk back. Eri needs to rewind you to fighting condition. You're the second line of defense for this school, and for yourself. Aizawa turned to exit the dorms, stopping at the exit and looking back. I know that's a lot on you and Eri at the moment. But we don't have a choice. Aizawa left the building, however Izuku stayed where he stood. He looked down at his feet and made a fist. He had already tried Eri rewinding him. It hadn't succeeded. Where stories live. Discover now.